Apps can do a lot of cool things. You could order dinner, gamble on your favorite team, and track your health. You could even get a mortgage. One click and you can be approved. I'm not sure by who or what country they're in. You deserve more from the mortgage industry. At AnyMac Home Mortgage, we believe in the need for live human interaction during a very complex process. The kind of service and guidance which an app simply can't provide. Our customers are more than credit scores and income documents. They're individuals and families who live in and strengthen our communities. Their story is our story, and that story begins in a home. Chris Sawyer is an expert on providing superior customer service and in meeting the mortgage needs of current and future homebuyers. With over 18 years of experience in the industry, Chris is able to help customers migrate through the home buying and home financing process by using his wealth of knowledge as a well-qualified mortgage professional. And best of all, Chris is located in Cromwell, Connecticut, where he has helped hundreds of clients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island make their dreams of homeownership a reality. Visit chrissawyer.any-mac.com. Email him at csawyer@any-mac.com or give him a call, 860-878-8730.
Chris Sawyer, NMLS number 39345, corporate NMLS number 338923. AnyMac Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. American Neighborhood Mortgage Acceptance Company, LLC. DBA AnyMac Home Mortgage. Lo-Fi Direct. Connecticut First Mortgage Correspondent. Licensed lender. Broker number ML 338923. Massachusetts Mortgage Lender and Mortgage Broker License number MC 338923. Rhode Island Licensed Lender. License number 201128110L. Call for additional details.
Welcome to Sports Talk with RNJ. I'm Steve Risser, along here with Justin D'Onofrio. And we got a busy week, too, in the NFL. We got a Super Bowl rematch. We got a rivalry being renewed in Dallas. And we'll see what the Giants do at the quarterback position if they lose that game. But we got to start in Green Bay with the Commanders and Packers. And both teams had impressive opening weeks. The Packers winning 27-13 over the Lions. And then the Commanders beating the Giants 21-6 in their home opener. So both these teams in their home openers had really impressive games. Now they'll meet up in Green Bay tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football, the first Thursday night game on Amazon this year. And for this game, I think it's going to be an interesting game. But I'm going to take the home team here. I'm going to take the home team here because there were some things with the Commanders last week. I know they won by double digits, but there's some things I really didn't like. I didn't like the fact that sequence before the half was terrible. That sequence, they're lucky they were playing the Giants because that sequence before the half was absolutely terrible. Where Jane Daniels had that intentional grounding call, and they only had one time. That's the more alarming thing. They only had one timeout left there, so that sequence wasn't good. A couple of times, there was one time where McLaurin and Jane Daniels were on the same page, but they were able to run the ball well in that game, so that is a positive there. But this is definitely a step up in competition for them. I don't think they'll obviously run the ball as well because I think Green Bay did a good job, containing the run game, and I do think that Josh Jacobs, because everybody's saying, "Oh, the Commanders are so improved defensively." Look at who they played. Okay, I'll give them credit for only giving up 6 points, but look at who they played in week one. So I do think the Packers score points again. I think you get a good run, you get a pretty good game on the ground from Josh Jacobs. I think Jordan Love throws a couple touchdown passes. I think Green Bay gets off to a fast start here. I think they get up 10-0. I think Washington playing from behind for pretty much the entire game. But I do think Washington keeps fighting back. I think Jane Daniels plays well, but not well enough, and that's why I'm going to go with the Commanders here. Sorry about that. I'm going to go with the Packers here to go to 2-0. The team that just traded for Micah Parsons, and also I think Parsons has a sack or two in this game too. So I'm going to go with the Packers here. I got the Packers beating the Commanders 27-20. But Justin, can Jane Daniels lead the Commanders to an upset win in Green Bay and get them to 2-0?
No, I got the Packers as well here, 27-17. Like the Commanders look good, but yes, they put the Giants because I felt like the Commanders defense wasn't great because the Giants moved the ball, and when they got the red zone, and I thought it was more when the Giants got the red zone, that was more their own inflicted wounds and play calling. So I don't even give the Commanders that much credit near the goal line or in the red zone. So I think Jordan Love's gonna have a pretty good game against them. And I'm with you. Like I'm not totally sold yet on Commanders defense. I don't, we'll find out a lot this week. And I think the Packers defense can get after Jaden Daniels. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on him. And I think because they're going to fall behind, they're going to be able to tee off on them. And the Packers do win this thing by 2 scores in this one.
Yeah, you were very confident with the Packers in this game. And the Giants didn't move the ball that much against the Commanders. It was really 3 drives. But yeah, you're right about the red zone issues. They were lucky the Giants were terrible in the red zone. So I'll give you that. But yeah, I mean, you're high on the Packers winning this game by 2 scores. They look great. The Packers looked great. in that opener. And that game was that 27-13 score against the Lions wasn't even indicative to the way that game was. It was a 27-6 game until the end. So the Packers look great. Here's the thing about the Packers too. Their pass rush was good. Pretty much everyone, Rashawn Gary, Parsons looked good. Really, the addition of Parsons was a huge lift for that defense because so let me tell you, they looked like one of the best defenses in the league. And, Rashawn Gary played well because of it. Luke Van Ness, he played well. Devontae Wyatt, he played well. So, and Edrin Cooper was really good in the middle. So that Parsons trade was a huge lift for the Packers, and it definitely showed in their first game.
Yeah, it absolutely did because now, you're putting so much attention on Parsons. Everybody else kind of, it opens up, for all the other kind of pass rushers the Packers have. So yeah, because that's such a vocal point to an offensive game plan every week is trying to slow down Parsons, and it's helping everybody else around in that defense. So yeah, that Packers defense looked really, really good. And I know it's like one game for Jared Goff and that Lions offense, but that looked like a totally different offense, and they gave him tons of fits, and they made him look like the old Jared Goff. So yeah, that Packers defense looked elite. And hey, I know it's 1 week, but like the Eagles didn't look great. The Lions look like they're a mess. They're not a mess, but like the Niners already have a ton of injury issues. Like, Packers right now, they look pretty good. It's early, but yeah, they're very impressive last week.
And that is an excellent point right there. An excellent point. To me, they definitely look like the best team in the NFC. To me, they look like the best team in the NFC. And they're only going to get better defensively because Micah Parsons is going to get more snaps. He didn't get it. He was on a pitch count because it was his first game with the team, and he was barely there. So he's going to get more snaps. So this defense is only going to get better. This is going to be one of the top 10 to top 5 defenses in the league. And then you combine that with a top 10 offense, you got yourself a team that very easily could win, 12, 13 games and win the division, and very easily can get the number 1 seed. So, as we said earlier in the year, as we said, this was before the Parsons trade we did in our season preview, the Packers don't have a lot of great on their team. They have a lot of good, but not a lot of great. They traded for a great player, Micah Parsons, and it showed with that defense. It absolutely showed with that defense on Sunday.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And yeah, Parsons made that defense a lot better, and it was good defense going in, but he makes it a great defense. And yeah, this team's only get better, by the week. And it's such a young team too that a lot of these younger guys continue to develop. Yeah, this Packers team, it's something special, and it's Jordan Love looked good. There's been some inconsistencies still with him through, his young career, but like if he can iron those things out, yeah, this Packers team looks really good for the future. And it's they're one of the best franchises in the sport. They always do a good job. They never have their, they're just, they do such a great job in that organization.
They do. And I got on them when they made that Jordan Love selection. I did. I got on them for it, but it seemed, and I know it hurt them for those 2 years, 2021 and 2022. It really hurt them. I'll admit that because it did hurt them, and it did hurt. It was a distraction, but it hurt them in the short term. But in the long term, it has really, really helped that franchise taking Jordan Love.
Yeah, it has. I know. Yeah, it was an odd one. You could have gone to a lot of different places in that draft, and to let Jordan Love sit for a couple of years. But yeah, it seemed to really pan out for him. And yeah, it seems like the Packers have another quarterback that's going to be there for the next long while. And the next, again, there's a lot of franchises that can't get one quarterback right in the draft, and the Packers have done it now 3 straight times. So they got to take advantage of that because they're going to miss at a quarterback eventually. But yeah, we've seen a lot of teams, Cleveland, Jacksonville, they can never get the quarterback right. So for them to do it 3 straight times is impressive.
Then we look at the Commanders' angle of this. Again, won the game against the Giants, could have done some things better, but there were some things that were impressive. I thought Jaden Daniels was impressive on 3rd down. I thought Crosby Merritt ran the ball well, had a rushing touchdown, so I thought they were going to run the ball well. And again, the defense Bobby Wagner was a beast against the run. He was great against the run on Sunday. They were able to get interior pressure with Dorrance Armstrong and Javon Kinlaw and Daron Payne, so they were able to get some pressure on the quarterback. The defense does look. I don't know how. We don't know how good the defense is going to be, but there were things they could have done better. The Commanders, the clock management was one of them. I think that the fact they didn't have timeouts at times, there was one time by the middle of the 4th quarter in the second half, they had no timeouts, which is crazy. It didn't matter because they were up, but that was crazy. And they only had one, and they only had one, and they didn't have a timeout after that intentional grounding call. But all in all, I still think the Commanders I mean, are going to be a team that I think they're going to be a team that I wouldn't be surprised at all makes the playoffs again.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Yeah, right now look like second best team in the NFC East right now. Yeah, we'll see a lot of defense. I thought, yeah, I think they did that 12 penalty too, which has to be ironed out a little bit, but kind of saw a lot week one. But yeah, some of the clock management stuff, but some of that stuff gets ironed out. It's some guys are so rusty. So yes, Commanders team looks still pretty good. Jaden Daniels look good. So yeah, it looks like another year where this team should be one of the wild card teams.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Should be an interesting game tomorrow night. Should be a fun game with the two quarterbacks going at it, Jordan Love and Jay Daniels. Should be an interesting game. I got the Packers winning by a touchdown. You got the Packers winning by 10. Now we'll move on to a Super Bowl rematch in Kansas City on Sunday as the Eagles take on the Chiefs. And I think this is going to be a close, competitive game. I really do. I think it's going to be close and competitive. But I think the difference in this game is I think that the Chiefs, when they get down there, they're going to score more touchdowns than the Eagles. I think both teams are going to move the ball. I think they both are. But I think the Eagles are going to score more touchdowns than the Chiefs because I think Patrick Mahomes is really going to attack whoever that third corner is for the Eagles. If it's Jaquan Bennett, if it's Adoree Jackson, he's really going to target who that third. You saw the Cowboys against them. Dak really target that third corner. Patrick Mahomes is going to target that third corner. I think both teams are going to contain the run. But I'm going to take the team who's going to have the better passing game here. I'm going to take the team because I do think the Chiefs are going to contain Saquon Barkley too. I think the one thing they did do against the Chargers was contain the running game. Now Herbert had a big day against them, had a huge day against them. He looked really impressive. But I think both teams are going to contain the running game. Both teams are going to move up the field. But I think you're going to see a lot of field goals in this game when they get into the red zone. But I'm going to take the team with the better passing game. I think the big reason why the Chiefs have the better passing game is there's some issues between AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. I think there's some issues there. I think a lot of people weren't talking about this, but it was noticeable during the Thursday night game, the issues between Jalen Brown and AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. I think the issues between them, only one target for a receiver that good. And I know Trayvon Diggs or Deron Bland was on it, but come on. One target for a receiver that good. There's something going on here. I think this is a close, competitive game, but I'm going to take the team that's going to score more touchdowns when they get in the red zone, and I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs here. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, and they're an underdog. They're a 1.5 underdog. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to get revenge over the Eagles. I'm going to go Chiefs 23-19 over the Eagles. But Justin, can the Eagles do what they did to the Chiefs in February and hand them their first 0-2 start in the Mahomes era?
Yeah, I got the Eagles in this one, 26-24. I think, yeah, both teams move the ball. Kansas City's banged up. I know Worthy might not go. Obviously, Rice is suspended right now. Kelsey at his age, I don't make a couple catches in that game, but I didn't think Kansas City ran the ball that particularly well outside of like Mahomes on Friday night against LA. I think Hurts is going to play pretty well. I think both offenses are going to move the ball, but I kind of like the Eagles a little bit more better right now than I do the Chiefs. I wasn't that impressed with either team on in their week one game, but I'll take Jalen Hurts in this Eagles defense. I think it's going to really help that Jalen Carter's going to be back, at the defense tackle for him. And I think, I think you're right. The AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts kind of chemistry right now isn't great, but I'll take Jalen Hurts to kind of figure it out with his wide receiver because I know Hollywood Brown had a good game. Tyquan Thornton, I think, had a couple catches. Like, I don't really. I'll take the Eagles wide receivers more than I do Kansas City right now because you got no Worthy and you got no Rice right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point without them. But here's my thing. Number one, Mahomes is the better quarterback, and number two, Eagles passing game has got some issues. Eagles passing game has got a little bit of issues for me. And you don't know about Landon Dickerson. Landon Dickerson might not play in the game. And a big reason why the Eagles scored touchdowns because Jalen Hurts used his legs. Jalen Hurts, 2 of those touchdowns the Eagles scored were Jalen Hurts. And then the other one was a Saquon Barkley run. So I don't totally trust the Eagles passing game right now. As I said, I think the dynamic between Brown and Hurts is something that's not being talked about enough. I think that's kind of an issue, and I think it's going to show up in this game. I think it's definitely going to show up in this game. Now, I think the Eagles are going to stop the run better than they did against the Cowboys because Jalen Carter's going to be back, and we'll get to if Jalen Carter should have been suspended for more than one game. We'll get to that, but yeah, I think the Eagles will stop the run. But the quarterback, even though the Eagles beat them in the Super Bowl, the quarterback I trust more here is Patrick Mahomes. And it's hard for me to see Mahomes go to 0-2. It really is hard for me to – I know they're playing the defending champs. I get it, and the team that beat them in the Super Bowl. but it's hard for me to see them go 0-2. That's why I do think the Chiefs win this game close, but I could very easily see the Eagles win this game, especially with the fact that they have Jalen Carter on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to really help because the Cowboys were able to run the ball all kind of all over them in that game, which is kind of surprising. But I think with Hurts, the passing game might be a little bit of issue. I just, Kansas City seems just the wide receiver spot kind of a question mark right now. I just wasn't really that impressed with Kansas City the other night. And I thought Justin Herbert played his best game as a pro. And I think there's some issues in Kansas City. I just, we kind of saw it with the Patriots for a couple of years. Like, though Kansas City's going to make this, Kansas City's going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going 8-9 or anything, but they put a lot of football the year, long seasons. I think might be a little bit of a down year for Kansas City. And with the close game stuff too, you saw it last week. They couldn't close it out. Like at some point, that's probably going to reverse this year. And I think too, like Jalen Hurts goes down the field late in the game and makes a couple plays to win this football game.
Yeah, and you made a good point about Kansas City. You made a really good point about Kansas City. And I think we both expected them to have kind of a down. Now, obviously, we both expected them to make the playoffs, but I think we both expect them to have a little bit of a down year. You made a really good point. And for me, teams that lose the Super Bowl usually don't come back the next year as good. There's only one team since the 93 Bills that has lost the Super Bowl and gotten back to the Super Bowl the next year, and that's the 2018 Patriots. So it's a lot easier to get back to the Super Bowl after you win it than after you lose it. Now, I do think the Eagles have a better chance to get back to the Super Bowl than the Chiefs. I just think the Chiefs win this week. But you made a good point about the Chiefs. Yeah, I think this is going to be kind of a slip. This might be their worst season since 2024 since 2021. I mean, because their O-line issues. They got O-line issues. Very young on the left side of the line. Running game is very inconsistent. So I think that, and the defense is good, but not a great. It's not Denver's defense. So yeah, you made a really, really good point about the Chiefs having a down year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they do.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I still think they make a wild card. I had them finish a second. Yeah, I think maybe they're like a 10-win team this year, which is still a solid year for most teams. So yeah, I just think some point they've made a bunch of these Super Bowl runs. I'm not saying like they'll be the Patriots and they won't go to a Super Bowl now for the next decade, but yeah, maybe it's a year that they don't. Yeah, defense is better than it. Is pretty good, but yeah, the weapons, right now are kind of banged up. So yeah, maybe just a little bit of a down year because they're kind of due for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we got a comment from Hector here. How concerned should we be if the Eagles fall, if the Chiefs fall to 0-2? I wouldn't say concern about them making the playoffs. I still wouldn't be concerned about them making the playoffs. I still think even if they fall to 0-2, that they will make the playoffs. And then seeing what they have in week 3, they got the Giants, so they should be able to beat the Giants in week 3. So seeing what they have in week 3, I don't think we should be totally. There's two ways. There's two ways to answer this. I wouldn't be concerned they would make the playoffs. If they fall to 0-2, I still think they make the playoffs. Now, I do think if they fall to 0-2, they'd have a tough time winning their division or getting that number 1 seed. I think they're not getting that number 1 seed is going to be brutal this year because the Bills' schedule. They got all the big games at home. I think the Bills are going to get the number 1 seed. So I think we should be concerned in terms of them winning the division or being the best team in the AFC. But even if they start 0-2, I'm not concerned about them making the playoffs.
Yeah, I still think they make the playoffs. Because after that, maybe there's some tough ones on the schedule, but like maybe like a game like the Lions, they didn't look great. They could probably win that one at home. They, I know the Raiders played them, usually pretty tough, but you should get both of those. Like the schedule is tough, but the good amount. I know they got the Bills, but they got the Lions at home. You got Washington at home. You got the Ravens at home. So that's still one of the better home field environments in the sport too. So that does help. And you got the Texans at home as well. So, I do think this Chiefs team. Yeah, I'm not totally that concerned if they go 0-2 that they're going to miss the playoffs. But yeah, I just I don't think they'll win. I think Denver will get them this year in the division.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close between them and then Denver and the Chargers because the Chargers beat them in week 1. Now, before we get to the Giants-Cowboys game, we got to bring up Jalen Carter. And the league did not suspend Jalen Carter. They felt like, what happened, him getting ejected from the entire game would replace the suspension. But the question is, should have Jalen Carter been suspended? I think he should have been suspended for this game. You don't spit on another man like that and not and not be suspended for a game. I felt like he should have been suspended for this game. That was terrible what he did right at the start of the game on Thursday night. That was terrible. So I do think he should have been suspended.
I'm fine with it. That because he got the hefty fine. I'm fine. He served he served his 1 game punishment. Dak was the one who started it though. That got off scot free because if you saw the video, Dak was the one that's kind of spit on him first.
Yeah, but I don't think he was spitting.
No,
I don't think he was spitting at him. I don't think he was spitting at him. I think he was just spitting on the ground.
I don't know. That could be true. I thought he was kind of spitting at him, but look, in any case, he shouldn't have responded. Carter shouldn't have spit back at him, but I'm okay with it getting the 1 game, or that serving as a punishment there. I'm okay with it. I might, I wonder if they weren't playing the Chiefs and they were playing like the Giants, if they would have done it. I think they'd rather, maybe there's a little bit of conspiracy in that, but for me, but yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think it should have been a game. I think it should have just been 1 game. I would have just done 1 game, but they'll have him on Sunday. It should be a great game. We got it with the rematch of the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles. But we got our man Hector in the chat. We like the fact that he commented already, and we got his team and my team on Sunday, who had another disgraceful opening day performance for this team on Sunday against the Commanders. But they will travel down to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. And for this game, for me, I don't see them getting embarrassed again. But I think the offensive issues are going to continue because the offensive line, and there's a good chance Andrew Thomas won't play again this week. The offensive line was absolutely pathetic on Sunday. I think it's going to struggle again. The running game was awful, and I think it's going to struggle again. I do think they do get in the end zone this week. I think they finally get into the end zone. I think they do get in the end zone this week, but I only get into the end zone once, and I think that Dak Prescott. I think defense competes. If they compete, they get pressure on Dak, maybe force a turnover here or there. I do think they contain the running game. I know Dallas ran the ball really well against Philly, but I think a result of that, but I think a big reason for that is Jalen Carter wasn't playing. So I do think they contain the running game, but I do think the difference in this game is the offense of Dallas against the offense for the Cowboys is clearly better than the offense for the Giants. I think Dak outplays Russell Wilson, throws a couple touchdown passes in this game. And I think this is a game where the Giants are in it till right at the end, but their offense doesn't make a play when they need to. And that's why I'm going to go with the Cowboys here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win their 9th straight game. Their 9th straight game against the Giants. I got the Cowboys winning this 20-13 over the Giants. But Justin, can Wilson and the Giants Wilson and the Giants help them snap their 8-game losing streak against the Cowboys?
No, I get the Cowboys as well, 23-15. Yeah, in this one, I think Dallas and Dak played pretty well against, I think Giants will get pressure on them. I was very surprised how bad the Giants rushing defense was. Washington kind of ran all over them. I was a little surprised by that, and I think Wilson, I think his best days are behind him, and Daboll too. What is it? They're now, I thought I saw it in week 1 or Daboll, they're been outscored 81 to 30. They've or the first half of week 1, they're outscored 67-6. You don't even use Cam Scatterboo in the red zone or at the goal line. That's why it's a big part of why you have Cam Scatterboo, to let him bully in the end zone. The offensive line was a mess. I'm kind of, I'm kind of out. I've been kind of out on Daboll, and I didn't love what I saw last week. And I think the offense has a little bit more success this week, but I still think Dak and that Dallas offense is a little bit more than Russell Wilson and the Giants. So I'm going to take Dallas here to kind of win a little bit comfortably.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. I mean, the Giants have shown you no proof that they could even beat the Cowboys. That's how bad it's been. And you said it. There's really no change with Daboll. The last 3 openers, they've been outscored 89-12. 89-12. And you said it. The run defense is still terrible. It's been terrible since Daboll has gotten there. The offensive line has still been really bad. The running, you can't run the football. And then the quarterback, and listen, was it all his fault? No. But as you said, his best days are behind him, and he's pretty much a placeholder at this point. So, Yeah, I was a defender of Dayball, as you know well. For the first couple of years he was here, but I was out by the end of last year, which 99% of the which 99% fan base was. I was out on him. I was out on him. You know why planes were flying. You could tell why Sunday could show you why there were planes flying over the stadium. The offense was absolutely pathetic. So yeah, I was out on Dayball at the end of last year, and you could see why. The offense was absolutely terrible. Yeah, they were terrible in the red zone. And again, yeah, the defense couldn't stop the run. The same issues that have been issues are still issues. Nothing is changing. So yeah, it just for this game, they've lost the Cowboys 8 straight. This regime is 0-6 against the Cowboys, and until I see it, I think they're going 0-7 against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's gonna be another tough one. It's got to be frustrating because I and like what's Stable doing too with the Bill Belichick like comments? Oh, we're gonna watch a film and all that of of Russell Wilson to be the starter, and then one day he announced like, just, come on, like we all knew that they're not gonna throw Jackson Dart in there week 2. Like just stuff like that too. I just that's not great either. So yeah, I just think Dallas continues their domination over the Giants, and yeah, it's got to be frustrating because I get why Mara didn't want to fire another head coach, so soon, but it only makes things worse, But again, thing is, does he, you don't want to force Dart in there to try to save your job, but again, I can't imagine this thing 0-2, going home next week, 0-2 with the Chiefs coming in, and Russell looks bad again on Sunday. I can't imagine what that crowd's gonna be like next Sunday night. It's not gonna be favorable. So, yeah, it's not great, and it's unfortunate. And I still think the defense is pretty good to keep them some games, but with Russell Wilson under center, I'd put Winston in. I told you before, so I'd put Winston there. He'll probably throw 3 interceptions, but at least he'll make some big plays on the field. At least he'll be somewhat entertaining, which I think at this point you probably want.
Yeah. Now talking about the Giants quarterback situation, and Woods is the third string quarterback. I don't think he's going to get a shot to be the starter. I just don't think that. I think with them elevating Dart as the number 2 quarterback, I don't think Winston's going to get a shot. But talking about the quarterback situation, this leads us to our next point. Should Dart take over as the Giants starting quarterback if they lose on Sunday? Should Dart take over as the starter? I don't think he should. I still don't think he should. I don't think you should throw him in this early. I don't think he should. My prediction was week 9. But knowing this coaching staff and knowing the fact that I don't trust this coaching staff to do the right thing, if they lose this game on Sunday and say they score under 20 points or don't score a touch or have another game and don't score a touchdown, I could see this coaching staff going to Jackson Dart against a Steve Spagnuolo defense in prime time. I could see it happening because I just don't trust this coaching staff because the reason this Dart thing came up was Dayball. If you listen to the press conference after the game, Dayball was not 100% committed on starting Russell Wilson in week 2. So that's how this whole thing kind of started. Should Dart take over as a starter? Is Dayball was not committed to starting Russell Wilson in week 2, and that's how this whole thing started. And you're starting to get the feeling that his job could be on the line if this team continues to lose games. And the thing is I don't know if this coaching staff now is going to do the right thing for the kid. They're going to do the right thing for themselves. They're going to do what's in the best interest of themselves. So should he take over as the starter if the Giants lose to the Cowboys? No, but if it's another performance where the Giants don't score an offensive touchdown or score like one offensive touchdown, I could see it happening because I just don't trust this coaching staff to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And outside of the Saints coming up after the, you really want his first couple starts to be against Kansas City, the Chargers, the Eagles twice, and the Broncos. No, you're not going to help his confidence, especially if Andrew Thomas is so banged up on that O-line. I get it that you might have to throw him to the fire, and that the staff might want to, but you're not going to help your job security throwing them to the wolves like that. Because those are some of the best defenses in the sport. And I'm with you, and that's why I would do San Francisco, the Bears, the Packers will be a tough one, but like at least there's a couple of spots there we can gain some traction. You can hope he plays decent, gain some confidence. Like against those teams coming up, it's gonna be pretty tough to gain your confidence outside of the Saints game.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm just Yeah, I hope they don't throw him to the wolves like that, but they might have, but I could see this coaching staff doing it to try to save their jobs, but I don't think it's going to help because I don't think you're going to see a great version of Jackson Dart going into those games.
And you brought up the Andrew Thomas piece of this. And before they bench Russell Wilson, I want to – and listen, I'm not making excuses for Russell Wilson. He didn't play well either on Sunday. But before they bench Russell Wilson, I want to see him struggle with Andrew Thomas playing a game. I want to see him struggle with Andrew Thomas playing a game before they make this move, because Andrew Thomas is clearly he's a better offensive player than Malik Neighbors. He's one of the top now, his durability is not good. As we've known the last 3 years, his durability is not good. He's one of the top tackles in the league. And if you see the Giants' record since 2022, when Thomas has been there, they're about a 500 team. When he's not been there, they've won like 3 games. So yeah, I'm not making this move until he struggles with Andrew Thomas. I just don't want to rush Jackson Dart in there. I think it's an overreaction from people, because if Dart was playing on Sunday, I think you're getting the same result. I honestly think you're getting the same result. And look where you drafted Dart. You drafted him 25th overall. You didn't draft him in the top 5. You drafted him in the 20s. So yeah, I think people are really overreacting to Jackson Dart. Now, does Wilson have to play better to keep his job? Absolutely. But I'd like to see him struggle with Andrew Thomas in there before I want to put Jackson Dart in the game.
Yeah, I agree. And look, he looked great in the preseason, but it's preseason. Like, look, the Giants are the preseason champions, and look how they looked on Sunday.
Exactly,
we can't totally overreact what we see in preseason. Like, look at the Sanders stuff week 1 of preseason, and then his next 2 outings, he was not as sharp. He was not as good. Like, you can't overreact what you saw in the preseason. And, you saw a bunch of basic kind of defenses. You're not going to see that. So I agree, too. Like, yeah, next week, if you threw Dart out there, you're going to get the same stuff as you're going to get with Wilson. It's not going to be much better. So, yeah, Andrew Thomas, yeah, it'd be huge to have him in there and would definitely help that offensive line. So, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. You can't throw him in the fire. That schedule is just too daunting of a task to try to, and yeah, draft him 25th. I know you moved back in the first round for him, but you're not going to help Jackson Dart. You're not going to help your job security throwing him in there to the Wolves, because I don't think you're going to see him go in there and throw 4 touchdowns and 0 INTs. It's not going to happen. So I agree. Just don't rush it. I get that they're probably going to at some point, especially if they are staring 0-4, 0-5 down the barrel, but you can't do it.
No, not yet. It's definitely too early. This is an overreaction by the media, but Brian Daboll didn't shut the door. He didn't close the door. He should have closed the door on Sunday. Brian Daboll should have closed that door and said, the minute they talked about quarterback change, the first words that should have came out of his mouth were, Russ is our starting quarterback. Russ is our starting quarterback. That should have been the first words that was said out of his mouth. He opened the door on Sunday, and that's why everyone's talking about this. I put that on Daboll for not in that press conference for not closing the door. And we got a comment from our man Hector. It's not a quarterback issue. It's an O-line and a coaching issue. Yeah, the quarterback is part of the problem, but the O-line and the coaching is a bigger issue. It's a bigger issue. The O-line and the coaching is a bigger issue. The O-line is absolutely terrible on Sunday. Absolutely terrible. And the coaching, Brian Daboll, such an offensive genius. The team this is historic. This hasn't happened since the 40s. The team, in 3 straight openers, they have not scored a single touchdown. So Hector is 100% right about this, that the O-line and the coaching are a bigger issue than the quarterback right now.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with both you guys are saying. It is, and yeah, Wilson's a little bit part of the problem, but yeah, the offensive line's been an issue now for going on a decade, just about
a decade. Yeah, a decade. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been trying to build it, and it's been brutal, and you have not been able to do it with a couple different regimes. And Shane too, like, there's not many Gettleman guys left, right? Like, it's pretty much his team now.
Oh, this is so on Joe Shane. This is so on Joe Shane. You look at some of these drafts. They've been 2022 and 2023 drafts were absolutely pathetic. They were absolutely pathetic from this general manager. Those first 2 drafts were pathetic. 2020, maybe even 2024. Even 2024, Theo Johnson didn't look good on Sunday. Tyron Tracy looked terrible. Really, there's 2 guys, Malik Neighbors and Drew Phillips, who made a big play on Sunday. So, yeah, you can argue, this is even more on Shane than Daboll, because at least Daboll coached team to the playoffs in 2022. Shane, his draft, he had 2 bad drafts. He had one okay draft last year, and this year, the jury's still out on this draft. So, The one thing, let's just say, oh no, before we wrap, the one thing that I think we can all agree on this, the one thing that is keeping these guys' jobs is Jackson Dart. That's the only reason. The fact Jackson Dart's sitting there, that's the only reason these guys have any chance of keeping their job past this season.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what the issue is now is, they might force him in there too early, which is only could make things worse. So, yeah, it's an issue. Yeah, that they're hanging on by a thread now, and Jackson Dart's their saving grace. And you hope you don't mess it up, because if it does go bad and you bring in a new head coach and a new GM and all that, it's not going to help Jackson Dart out. So, by throwing him in there too early. So, yeah, I hope they don't rush it, and yeah, it might get ugly, but you gotta be patient with Jackson Dart. And I don't know. This is a problem with the regime on the hot seat like this, is they don't tend to think rationally. They tend to tend to make bad decisions.
Exactly, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Dart. I don't think he should, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Dart starts in week 3. But it is time to get to your Patriots, who they're getting a lot. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but that was a disappointing loss. I felt like that was a disappointing loss on Sunday in Mike Vrabel's opener against the Raiders. I was disappointed by their performance against the Raiders. But the only saving grace for the Patriots is they're probably playing the team that looked the worst in week 1 with the Dolphins. And and for Miami, it looks like Mike McDaniel's lost this team. And knowing my pick this week, it shows you why he's lost his team. When you are picking the Patriots to win a game in Miami in September, the Dolphins are in a really, really bad way. When you're picking New England to win when you're picking the Patriots to win a game, the Patriots have not won in Miami since Antonio Brown. That one game Antonio Brown played. The last time they played in Miami, Tom Brady was the quarterback. It was 2019. They've lost 6 straight in Miami. The Dolphins have had their way with the Patriots since Brady's left. They've won 8 out of 10. Tua has never lost to the Patriots in his career, but I think that's all going to change on Sunday, because I do trust that Vrabel's team is going to have a bounce back performance. I think that Drake May will play better this week, even though I think he'll make a mistake. I do think Tua plays better, but I think he makes a mistake. This is a close competitive game, a really, really close competitive game, but the Dolphins are in a really bad way when you got to take the Patriots to win in Miami. And I'm going to go with the Patriots here, 23-20 over the Dolphins. But Justin, we saw the Patriots struggle last week. Can they bounce back and get their first win in Miami since 2019?
They better this week. I got them 24-21. If they don't, it's time to hit the panic button. It's time to move on next season, because if you lose this Dolphins team and this offense can't get out of the teens, we have major issues, because Daniel Jones looked great. Maybe it's a new environment. We'll find out this weekend. It's a very good Denver defense, and even Tua looked bad. Drake May now is 1-11. He has 17 turnovers and 12 starts. If he doesn't play well this week, I'm gonna start having my doubts. And they've gone now 46 straight games without going over 30 points, which is it's the longest streak in the league right now. The offense hasn't been good for years. You gotta look good. You have to at least look good this week against this Dolphins defense that is pitiful. Probably one of the worst secondaries in the sport. You mentioned it, a team that's pretty much quit on their coach, and you could tell out there. Tua looked bad against a Colts defense that's, I don't think, that great either. You got to win this football game Sunday, or at least be competitive and at least look like a competent offense for once. Because that last Sunday looked like the last couple of years of this team. An abysmal offense, bad mistakes. Even the interception Drake May threw, that looked like a Mac Jones interception. Like, I was excited about Drake May. I was excited he had an OC this year. But now after week 1, maybe I'm being a little bit over dramatic. I'm really starting to doubt Drake May. I just haven't totally, the turnover just kind of didn't look great. So look, I'm hoping he's got to look confident this week. He has to. The offensive line's got to look better. I am very nervous about this one, but I think they eke out a win. I think they do, but I think this is a 6-win football team at most. I thought they'd go 9-8. I was a little bit too over. I was a little bit over. Over eager about this team, and I still don't think they're a great football team.
as a Patriot fan, even though the Dolphins look awful right now, and it looks like they've quit on their coach, you always got to be nervous when they go to Miami. And to really show me things have changed, you got to win this game in Miami. You got to win this game. You've lost way too many times to this Dolphins team since 2020. Since Brady has left, you've lost way too many times to this team. You still haven't beaten Tua. He's been in the league for 6 years. The Patriots still haven't beaten Tua. So to show me that things have changed, you have to win this game. And then on Drake May, I was disappointed by, especially in the second half. I was disappointed by Drake May's performance. I really was. I thought he'd be better, even though they didn't run the ball well. Let's say Trayvon Henderson didn't have a good game. The offensive line is still a work in progress. I mean, you saw that false start by Will Campbell there in the fourth quarter. Drake May has got to be he's got to be better. He does, and that interception turned the whole game around. So he definitely has to be better. But overall they got to be better. Defensively they gave up a lot of. I know Christian Gonzalez was out, but they gave up a lot of big plays. That Trent Tucker touchdown, that big play to Brock Bowers, that play on 3rd and 20, which I don't get why Vrabel was blitzing there. I do not get why Mike Vrabel had an all-out blitz on 3rd and 20. Just play coverage and get the ball back. Also, another thing with Vrabel, 4th and 10 at your own 45-yard line. Come on, the defensive culture in New England has got to stop. They got to be more aggressive. This has been happening. This has been the issue in 2020. They coach conservatively. They coach way too conservatively. You got to go for it there. So I think all in all, it was a disappointing performance for the Patriots in week one. Offensively, even defensively with big plays and some coaching issues with Vrabel. But luckily for them, I feel like even though they've struggled against this opponent in Miami, even going back to the Brady days, but post Brady, they haven't won there. They have not won in Miami. They haven't won in Miami since 2019. So even though they've struggled against this opponent, I do think they win because I think the Dolphins have quit on Mike McDaniel. And I won't be surprised if Mike McDaniel doesn't make it past this month. If they start.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I thought I saw something too. Miami's gonna be fine. Like they're doing a GoFundMe to fly a plane with like fire Chris Greer or fire Mike McDaniels around the plane on Sunday. Chris Greer. Okay. Yeah. So things aren't great in Miami. Like I know Vrabel's like it's gut check week and all that, and but it's all the coach speak stuff. But I don't. Yeah, there's. I need to see it from this team this week. Like this is a huge week for me to buy back kind of a little bit back into the team. I don't think this team is going to be contending a wild card spot. I think that's gone. I think they're another year away. But like you mentioned secondary too. Like Jabril Peppers could have helped you on Sunday. Like,
I don't get that. I don't get that at all either. I agree.
Yeah, like that could have been a big help for you on Sunday. He's only making, I think, $6 million. You're still way under the cap. That decision made no sense to me. I still don't get it. Yeah, like Vrabel again. I think Vrabel's 100 times better than Gerard Mayo. Like I know Vrabel's gonna turn this thing around, but there's a lot of question marks still. And that's the thing. Yeah, you got to beat this Dolphins team. You just have to. Or if not, it's for me. It's at least my college football teams look decent and. At least UConn basketball plays the next Michigan game in 33 days because the Patriot season I'll be writing off till next year. They lose this game because the Jets look competent.
Yeah, and we'll get to them next. Yeah. I mean the Patriots. Yeah, it was a disappointing performance on Sunday. They got to bounce back this Sunday in Miami. But speaking of the Jets, they had a pretty good. Let's say their offense surprised a lot of people on Sunday, even though they lost because Aaron Rodgers surprised people with the way he played too against the Steelers against the Jets, but. For the Steelers, but the Bills come into MetLife. That was a classic. That was a classic on Sunday night. That was such a great game on Sunday night. Josh Allen proving why he's the second best quarterback in the league. And I think he has another big game this week against the Jets secondary that outside of Sauce Gardner is absolutely terrible. I think he has a big game. I think he goes for over 300 yards. I think the Bills get into the 30s. I do think Justin Fields plays well again. I do think they have that identity. The Jets. Here's the one thing that they have right now that the Giants and Patriots don't have. They have an identity. They know who they are, especially on offense. They're able to run the football. I think Breece Hall is another good game against a very suspect Bills run defense. But I think the issue is once the Bills get a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, I think Justin Fields is going to struggle because Justin Fields always struggles when you got to play from behind him. When you need a drive, he played well last week, but you need a drive to win a game, Justin Fields is the wrong quarterback to have. So I think the Bills win this, and I got them winning it by double digits. I got the Bills 31-20 over the Jets this week. But Justin, can Fields have another big game and lead the Jets to a big upset win at home against the Bills?
I think he plays well, but I think the Bills win this thing 28-24. The Bills thing there wasn't impressive either. I know they played the Ravens, but I think the Jets are going to have a lot of wide receivers that are open in the middle of the field. I think Fields plays pretty well again. I thought he did a good job of winning the run and winning the pass. Brees Hall had a really good game. Yeah, you mentioned it. There's still some little kind of mental mistakes by the Jets, but I think Aaron Glenn's going to do a really good job there. And the Jets look like they have an adult in the room for the first time in quite a while. So I think for the Jets, you got to feel pretty good about things. And I think Fields plays well again, but yeah, you mentioned it. I think Josh Allen, this offense, this secondary for the Jets isn't great either outside of, you mentioned, Sauce Gardner. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up enough with Josh Allen this game. And I'm going to take the Bills to go to 2-0 and pretty much already clinch the division.
Exactly. They are by far the best team in the AFC East. Now, moving on to the team that beat the Jets last week, and that's the Steelers, and they host the Seahawks this week in Pittsburgh. I think it's a close, competitive game. I think that Rodgers, I don't think he plays as well as last week, but I think he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't turn it over. I think the Steelers' defense is definitely better this week. I think they get pressure on Darnold. They force a couple turnovers. I think this game comes down to how it did last week for Seattle. The ball in Sam Darnold's hands with a chance for him to win the game, and he doesn't do it. And I got Pittsburgh going to 2-0, Seattle going 0-2. I got the Steelers winning 23-17 over the Seahawks. But Justin, can Darnold bounce back this week and lead the Seahawks to an upset win in Pittsburgh?
No, I got the Steelers as well, 21-16 in this one. I think Darnold, yeah, he only had like 150 yards pass, and that's got to be like 200, 250 to have a chance, I think, in this one. And I think the Steelers defense, which I think if they have any pride, is going to come out and get after Sam Darnold. I think they're going to sack him a couple times. I think they're going to struggle to get the running game going as well. So I don't think they're going to have I think they're going to struggle to score. There'll be a couple turns of this one, and Rodgers looked good. That looked like a little bit of the old Rodgers. He's running around. The arm looked good. Rodgers looked good. I don't think Seattle's gonna be able to keep up.
AFC North matchup in Baltimore as the Ravens try to take their anger out from what happened Sunday night against the Browns, and I think they do. I think it's a big day for Derrick Henry on the ground. I think Lamar throws a couple touchdown passes. I mean, the Browns defense hung in and played pretty well last week, only giving up 17 points, but I like the Ravens offense better than the Bengals offense. I think it's more complete. I think that the Ravens put up in the 30s here, and I think Flacco, competes in this game, but he turns the ball over a couple times against the Ravens defense. And I got the Ravens winning this one, bouncing back and win this one by 2 scores. I got the Ravens 31-17 over the Browns. But Justin, can Joe Flacco lead the Browns to an upset win against his former team?
I think they keep it close. I got the Ravens 27-20. Both these teams probably should have won last week. The Browns too, just most Brownsy way to lose a football game. Yeah, I think Cleveland's defense kind of tries to hang in there for like a half or so. I think Flacco does make some plays against this defense. I think he plays well, but I don't think the Browns defense is going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson, their offense. I think, Derrick Henry's having a big game on the ground. But I think Joe Flacco, Harold Fanny, David Njoku, I think could have, I think the Ravens got to slow down those 2 tight ends. But I do like the Ravens to bounce back, but I can't trust the Ravens in January. That's for sure. There's way too many blown leads for the last couple of years from that franchise.
Yeah, we'll be probably talking about that all season long when they're trying to compete with the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC. We will move on to a matchup in Cincinnati of 2 1-0 teams between the Jags and the Bengals. And I'm going to go with an upset here. Because the Bengals won last week, but I think it's the same thing with Zach Taylor, a slow start. Even though they played their starters in the preseason, the slow starts and continues. They were outgained by 200 yards to the Browns last week. If the Browns had an actual kicker, they would have won that game. So I think that, I think that Trevor Lawrence moves the ball. I think Travis Etienne is the big reason why. I think Travis Etienne has another big week on the ground. He had a really good game against the Panthers. I think he does it again against the Bengals. I think Lawrence throws a couple touchdown passes. And I do think that, the Jaguars get pressure, maybe force Burrow to turn the ball over once. And I think maybe they force some field goals in the red zone. And I got the Jaguars winning this. I got an upset here. I got the Jags winning this game 27-23 over the Bengals. But Justin, can the Bengals, this is crazy to say this, can the Bengals get up to their first 2-0 start in the Zach Taylor era?
I think they do. I really wanted to take the Jags with you, but I didn't think the Jacksonville played that well either last week. I think it was a lot more of the Panthers. I know they ran the ball really well, but yeah, the Bengals only had 73 yards in the second half against that Browns defense. So I really, really wanted to. I just wasn't impressed either with Lawrence. I think Brian Thomas is going to have a better game. as well as we. I think he'll be more involved in the offense, but I think Joe Burrow does enough against this Jacksonville defense. I still don't think it's great. It's not great. I know they played well, but Bryce Young looked like he reverted back to his rookie year the other day or on Sunday. So I think the Bengals find a way to equal it out, but I would not be shocked if Jacksonville goes in there and knocks them off.
Matchup of 2 0-1 teams in Detroit as the Bears take on the Lions. Bears lost a heartbreaker, blew a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter on Monday night against the Vikings, and then the Lions did not play well at all. They looked like they missed Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn on a Sunday against the Packers. And Ben Johnson now returns. He plays his former team in Detroit. And I think this is a close competitive game. I think that, I don't think Jared Goff will look great in this game. I think they'll turn the ball over. I think it'll be decent, but I think they'll turn the ball over once or twice. I think the same thing with Caleb Williams. I think this is close and competitive, and we'll come down to the end. But I'm going to take the better team. I'm going to take the better team here. I'm going to take the Lions here. I just don't trust Caleb Williams at the end of the game. He was not good in the second half. I don't trust him at the end of the game here. I'm going with the Lions here. I get the Lions 24-17 over the Bears. But, Justin, can Caleb Williams bounce back this week and help Ben Johnson get his first win as Bears coach against his former team?
I'm with you here. I got the Lions 23-20. Yeah, outside of the first drive in the Bears last week, I wasn't that impressed with the offense. And Caleb, I thought too, still leaves the pocket a little bit too soon. And I know that's his style and all that, but he does not sit in the pocket very long. And kind of, I know that's great. And a lot of dink and dunk. And again, I think for both these quarterbacks, you saw a lot of dink and dunk last week. And Williams, missed some deep shots. That one to DJ Moore there that probably could have been a touchdown. He missed there. And for these two teams too, since 2022, the Bears on the road are 4-21, and the Lions following a loss, their last 10 losses, they're 10-0. So I am going to take the Lions. I was not that impressed. Their offensive line, for Detroit, didn't look great either. I'm going to take Detroit to bounce back, but I don't feel confident about it because did not like the way Jared Goff played either. There, for the weapons that they have, they didn't really take many shots either. It's just a ton of dink and dunk stuff from them.
Yeah, they didn't. I think a big reason for that is they were getting whooped up front. I think they may take a little bit more this week because I think their offensive line will hold up better against this Bears defense. But it looked obvious on Sunday that Jared Goff missed Ben Johnson. It definitely looked obvious that offense definitely missed Ben Johnson. We'll see if they can bounce back this week against Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. Now we got the Rams traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Rams offensively were not. I know the Texans defense was good, but they struggled. They struggled against the Texans defense. I think Stafford's back injury. I think he's limited, but I think in this game it's not going to matter because I think the run game. I think Kyron Williams going to run for over 100 yards. That'll help Stafford throw for a couple touchdown passes. And this Titans offense is going to be a strong. I feel like it's going to be a struggle all year. I think they're going to get pressure on Cam Ward. I think he's going to throw a pick or two. And I got the Rams here by double digits. I got the Rams 24-13 over the Titans. But Justin, can Cam Ward help the Titans pull off? Last week, they almost did because the Broncos were not good either. But they almost did. But can Cam Ward help the Titans pull off an upset win against the Rams?
No, I got LA as well here, 20-10. I thought Cam Ward had a couple of moments. There was a couple drops too. He dealt with Brian Callahan too. Why is he going to the media saying, I don't know what a catch is or not? Like,
you should, as an NFL head coach, you should know that. You're an NFL head coach. You should know what a catch is. It's your job. You're getting paid millions of dollars.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of these coaches, I just don't get it. So good luck, Cam Ward. Brian Callahan, I would not be shocked he's out of a job after this year. I think their defense looked good, but was that just more the Broncos not looking great, or I think Kyron Williams runs the ball. I think they kind of have a pretty good game on the ground, so I got the Rams winning this thing by double digits.
Yeah, I agree. I think I got the Rams by double digits. Now moving on to the Niners and the Saints. I think in this game there's a chance that Brock Purdy won't play. There's a chance that he won't play. We got a comment from Hector. We'll go back to Stafford 0-4 in his career against Tennessee.
Did not know that.
He will get his first win. Yeah, but here's the thing about that stat. A lot of those were when he was with the Lions. One of those games was when he was with the Rams, but a lot of those were when he was with the Lions, and the Titans had I feel like the Titans had the better team. So I think that's why he's 0-4 against Tennessee. But I think a lot of those games were Mike Vrabel was the coach of the Titans. A couple of those were when Vrabel was the coach. So I think this is a much different Tennessee or much different organization, a very unstable Tennessee organization. That's why I think the Rams will have no issue winning on Sunday. But moving back, circling back to the Niner game, there's a good chance they won't have Brock Purdy this week. So Mac Jones will be the starter. George Kittle and obviously Brandon Ayuk are out. So I think this game will be close because of that. But I do think Christian McCaffrey's a good game on the ground. And let's be honest, Mac Jones is not a bad backup. Mac Jones is your backup. He's a pretty good backup. As you know, he quarterbacked the Patriots to the playoffs until Belichick. He had his hand there too, before Belichick ruined him by hiring Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator. So I don't think Mac Jones is a bad backup quarterback. So I do think this game is close and competitive, but I think it's going to come down to what it was at the end. I think that the Niners defense is going to make a play. I think the Saints offense will move the ball, but I think they're going to settle for field goals. And I think that the Niners defense will make a play like they did last week and get to 2-0. I got the Niners getting to 2-0, winning this one 23-16 over the Saints. But Justin, can Spencer Rattler win his first game as a starter in the NFL? Keep asking the question because he's 0-7, but can he win his first game as a starter in the NFL?
No, I got the Niners as well, 24-20. I thought the Saints were feisty last week. I thought, I know Murray had the flu, but they had 5 sacks. I know 13 penalties weren't great, but I think they got to run the football a little bit better this week. I know it might be tough against this Niners defense, but man, the Niners are already banged up. I thought they'd have some better injury luck this year, and we'll find out how much Shanahan really loved Mac Jones, because if you remember going back to that draft, I don't know if it was a stroke screen or not, but there was talk of the Niners taking him ahead of instead of Trey Lance. So we'll see how much Shanahan really loved Mac Jones. I agree. I think he's a good backup. He's decent for being a backup, but we'll see what he can do under Shanahan.
Yeah, and getting to the George Kittle piece of this, the question really is how big of a loss? How is the loss of George Kittle going to affect the Niners? If you look at the games he's going to miss, he's not going to be back till week 6. So if you look at the games, this week against New Orleans, which they should win, but they got 2 division games in there, and they got Jacksonville in the middle at home, which is a tougher game than you think, because Jacksonville looked good in week 1, but there's 2 division games there, and I think that's crucial. I think there's a good chance they could drop both those 2 division games, because Arizona, I think, could very easily be a playoff team this year. I think the Cardinals could be a playoff team this yeyear, and then you look at they go to the Rams too, so I think it's going to affect them. I think there could be a chance they could be 2-3 after 5 games, or 3-2 with 2 divisional losses.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it really could. Especially with no Ayuk kind of either in there. Especially if Purdy's banged up. So I know Ayuk he's eligible to come off week 5, so maybe you get back for like that Rams game. But yeah, it's very possible this team could be 3-2. I wouldn't totally be shocked if the Saints beat them this week, because I thought the Saints, I thought they played hard last week. Maybe they could steal one. Mac Jones makes a couple of mistakes, so yeah. But those couple coming up are going to be tough, because Jacksonville's no kind of no pushover either. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Niners team sitting there 3-2. I really thought they had better injury luck this year. That's why I thought they'd go 12-5 just because of that schedule, and I thought they wouldn't have as many injuries. But yeah, they're already starting to pile up.
They are so far. They are so far for them. Now we will move on to a pretty good game at 4:00 in Indianapolis. As the Colts were one of the most impressive teams. Daniel Jones had a really good week in week 1. He played great against I know the opponent. It looks like the opponent he played, those guys are quitting on him, but quit on their head coach. But still, Daniel Jones, got to give him credit, he played well. And then the Broncos were a little sloppy, a little disappointing in week 1. I know they won the game, but they were sloppy. Turned the ball over 4 times against the Titans. And in this game, though, I'm still going to go with the Broncos because of the run game. With Harvey and with J.K. Dobbins, I think they'll be able to run the ball. I think Bo Nix has a bounce-back week here. And I do think Daniel Jones has an up-and-down game. I think this is more of what we're going to see more of what we've seen with him with the Giants this week. Where he's going to be very up and down. I think he'll turn the ball over once or twice. And I think he'll have the ball in his hands, but I don't think he gets it done. Just because against a lot of good teams, Daniel Jones, he can beat the bad teams, but he has trouble against good teams. And I think that trend's going to continue in Indy. I got the Broncos here winning it 24-20 over the Colts. But Justin, can Daniel Jones lead the Colts to a 2-0 start?
No, I got the Broncos as well, 21-17. Yeah, Bo Nix is sloppy. I'm hoping RJ Harvey gets a couple more touches this week, because he ran the ball pretty well last week. I think they had like 7 or 8 touches. And Daniel Jones, I think, plays all right, but I think this Denver defense is going to get after him. The defense is going to travel for Denver this week. I think it's to be a little bit tougher. I think he gets Michael Pittman involved. I think they're going to struggle a little bit more with the ground game this week, but I think the Browns are going to try to shut that down. The RPO game as well. So I think he keeps them in it, but just can't make enough plays down the stretch, and the Broncos get out of Indy 2-0.
And Hector says, 4 turnovers. However, 6 different players of the Broncos had a sack last week. That arguably
It's
the Broncos
impressive.
I think the Broncos might have the best defense in the NFL. I think arguably they might have the best defense. I know they faced a rookie quarterback last week, but arguably the Broncos might have the best defense in the league.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that. I really like their defense, and they built a really good defense the last couple of years, because that defense when Payne first took over was abysmal. So they've done a really nice job taking over that defense and building up so quickly here.
They definitely have. We got an NFC matchup in Arizona as the Panthers take on the Cardinals. And I do think Bryce Young is a bounce back week. I think he plays pretty well this week. But the problem is I don't think the Panthers stop him. I think the Panthers we talked about one of the best defenses in the league. I think the Panthers have one of the worst defenses in the league. I think it's a big week for James Conner on the ground. I think Kyler Murray has about 2 or 3 touchdown passes. I think it comes down to the end, but I'm going Cardinals here. I got the Cardinals over the Panthers 28-20. But Justin, can Bryce Young have a bounce back week and lead the Panthers to an upset win in Arizona?
I think he plays okay against this defense, but I have the Cardinals 30-18. I think Kyle Murray should be healthy this week. I think he spreads it around. Marvin Harrison had a pretty good game on Sunday. I think that continues. Trey McBride's one of the better tight ends. I think Murray spreads it around and has a pretty good game. I think James Conner does as well on the ground, and I think Bryce Young will make some plays in this one to try to keep him in it for a half, but I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough. I think there's a turnover or 2 in there, and I think the Panthers go down because their defense just not going to keep them in many football games this year.
No, I think their defense. I think the Panthers are one of the worst defenses in the league. Now we got a matchup of 2 quarterbacks that played in the national championship game 2 years ago. Got J.J. McCarthy of the Vikings, Michael Penix of the Falcons. Now, they both had pretty impressive games last week. They were both pretty impressive, especially in the second half. J.J. McCarthy was impressive in this game. And I think for this game, I think they're both going to struggle a little bit. I think this is a tough – Brian Flores is a brutal defensive coordinator, especially for a young quarterback. He's a brutal – he's the best defensive coordinator in football. It's a brutal defense to go up against for a young quarterback. I think Michael Penix is going to struggle. I think he's going to turn the ball over. I do think J.J. McCarthy is going to see some pressure, too, from Raheem Morris. I think both quarterbacks are going to struggle in this game. But I'm going to take the team that's at home and has the better roster and the better coach. I'm going to go with the Vikings, another close one here. I got the Vikings 20-17. But Justin, can Michael Penix bounce back this week and get the Falcons to 1-1?
I got the Vikings in this one 23-18. I think Penix is going to have I think he'll make some plays, but I think, as you mentioned before, his defense is going to after him. I think to be a good test of that offensive line this week to see how they kind of handle the pressure they're going to face. And I don't think the Falcons are have as much success on the ground this week as they did last week. And I think the Falcons, like they usually do, probably find a way to lose this football game. And I think McCarthy plays pretty well. And I know it was a tough first 3 quarters there, but he played pretty well down the stretch in that one. I think the Vikings make some plays in this one, and I think the Vikings on the ground too kind of control the game, and they get out with the win.
All righty, we'll wrap up with the 2 Monday night games. We've got 1-0 Tampa Bay heading to 0-1 Houston. I think this is a close competitive game, but I'm going to take the home team here. I think the worst injury could hurt the Bucs, especially with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter on the other side. So I think they get pressure on Baker, force a turnover. I do think that Houston will struggle offensively too, but I'm going to take the quarterback who I think is going to make the less mistakes. And I think that quarterback's going to be Baker Mayfield. CJ Stroud. In a close competitive game, I'm going Texans here. I think the Texans go to 1-1. They win their home opener. I got them winning it 23-19. But Justin, can Baker Mayfield continue to stay hot and lead the Bucs to a 2-0 start?
Yeah, I get the Bucs in this one, 21-17. I think the Texans offensively keep them in this one. I think Baker plays, I think he makes a couple plays in this one. The Texans defense would be tough to stop or tough to kind of score on in this one. But I think Baker kind of spreads it around. They make a couple plays, and I think the Buccaneers defense makes Stroud throw a turnover or 2, and they make him one-dimensional in this one. I think that's the difference. And Tampa Bay gets out at Houston 2-0.
All right, we'll wrap up with an AFC West matchup in Vegas as the Chargers take on the Raiders. Both teams 1-0 going into this matchup, going into this rivalry game, and I think this is close and competitive. I think Justin Herbert has another good week, another big week. I think the Chargers do run the ball a bit better against the Raiders. Even though the Patriots had trouble running the ball against the Raiders, I think the Chargers will run the ball well against the Raiders. But I don't think the Raiders move the ball here. I think Genti has a good game on the ground. I think Geno Smith plays well. But I think the difference is when the Chargers get into the red zone, they score touchdowns. The Raiders get into the red zone, they kick field goals. And that's why I'm going to go with the Chargers here to get to 2-0. I got the Chargers win at 28-23. But Justin, can Geno Smith and Pete Carroll lead the Raiders to a 2-0 start?
I got the Chargers well, 27-20. The Raiders for the first time in quite a while look like they have an actual head coach in the room that, because you kept waiting for the Raiders to do what the Raiders do, just make some dumb mistake, some dumb penalty, to cost them a football game. And they didn't do that Sunday. And I think Geno keeps them in this one, but Justin Herbert and that offense looked really good on Friday night. I don't think Geno's to be able to keep up enough with them in the game. I think Genti does run the ball a little bit better this week though, but I think Justin Herbert makes a couple more plays than Geno, and the Chargers get out of Vegas with a win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive game between them both, but I think the Chargers win this game in Vegas this week. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Sports Talk with R&J. But we'll be back in about 15 minutes talking about the absolutely disastrous performance of the Bronx, the Yankees' disastrous 7th inning against the Tigers. So make sure you tune in for that.
Hello, my name is Joe Aguirre. I'm the president of Clovercrest Media Group. And here at CMG, we have a wide variety of podcasts, including sports shows like Keys to the City, The Roll Call, Throwing Jabs, All Four Downs, and Jawing About the G-Men. And great true crime shows like Sticky Meat, Crimes and Consequences, Ivy League Murders, and Bird, the unsolved murder of David Eichmann. You can find all these podcasts and so much more by visiting clovercrestmedia.com.